Okay, we are live. I learned something new today.
Hit me.
We need headphones.
Oh, it's not plugged in.
Oh, well, there's one way to resolve that. How about now?
Now I can hear you.
Now you're good. That works out. Do. Did you pay for parking?
Oh, crikey.
You know what? Let's pay for parking while people get ready to jump on this thing, because I don't need another ticket for sure.
No.
But yeah, I learned something new today in regards to the relationship between Cal and State before they play.
What did you learn?
Well, we'll start the podcast and get into that. I just want to make sure I pay for parking first, so I don't get a ticket. So I don't get.
I didn't park in the hot zone today, so
neither.
I just went out and got my glasses, and I didn't have a ticket. So.
Yeah.
Well, props to Charlotte while we're there.
In what sense?
They're not militant about their parking tickets the way that downtown Raleigh is.
Fayetteville Street has, as you say, one hot zone, and that's right by the Capitol. I really think that's the case. That's the hottest of hot zones.
Dude, we were there for 2 days. I was like, I paid for like a total of 2 hours of parking. Did not get a ticket at all.
Not me. See, I paid in the deck and paid like $25 each day.
I was going to say, you got rammed.
Yeah, well, you know what? I wanted to, I had the
support
equipment.
the economy.
So yeah, I had the equipment too. I didn't really feel like walking a bunch. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. You ready?
I'm trying to find this Georgia-Texas game so Georgia can hurt me again.
All right, let's go.
I'm ready.
Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovies. It is just past 2:00 live on YouTube. You know what that means? It's time for another OG Live brought to you by The Butcher's Market. Check them out online at thebutchersmarkets.com. It's going to be a gorgeous weekend. So you know what you should be doing? You should be going to the Butcher's Market right now and getting yourself some pre-marinated meats, or you want to do it yourself, get whatever cut of meat you want. Get the rubs, the spices, the marinades, the right smoke that you're looking for. They have it all there at the Butcher's Market. Locations all across the triangle.
I also can't stress this enough that they cater now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't realize how amazing that is, just wait until you are the hero of your office during Halloween.
Yes.
Because everyone has a Halloween office party. Why not have some steak sandwiches? Why not have some turkey avocado? Why not hook them up with the Butcher's Market's catering? You can find those options at thebutchersmarkets.com.
As always, our presenting sponsor is Copiers Plus. You can check them out online at copiers-plus.com. We spend so much
Speaking
time.
Of which, need to text Drew.
We got text Drew about.
I switched again.
How many times are you going to switch Wi-Fi?
I didn't do it on purpose. I was trying to save $20 a month. But the big company doesn't really work, so I'm back to the initials.
Okay, gotcha. Anyway, I jotted down that we spent a lot of time talking about what's wrong with NC State and North Carolina in football, that we tend to forget that there's Duke here in the market.
It's fair.
And they have an opportunity to do something this weekend that they have never done before. They've never beaten Florida State. They are 0-22 lifetime against the Seminoles.
That's wild.
Now, with conference realignment and the divisions, there was no real incentive for Duke and Florida State to play. They had what could have been an epic game last year. I think they lost that game 38-22 or 38-28. And that was when Riley Leonard, he came back early. He got hurt. And then he played in that game and he re-aggravated whatever it was that he was dealing with. Now I'm like trying to think off the top of my head. And Duke was looking at a situation where they were going to be Clemson and Florida State in the same year, and we were not prepared for that to happen. Right. Of course, Duke's season wasn't quite the same after that. Obviously, Florida State's a hell of a lot different than the team that should have gone to the college football playoff last year, and Duke is certainly different with Mike Elko now at Texas A&M and a whole bunch of new key pieces, Malik Murphy at quarterback. And given where we are in the slog of the season with Florida State, if you're not going to do it now, Duke, when are you going to do it?
Kind of like when Carolina went down there as a 3-touchdown favorite and couldn't get it done.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that's kind of fascinates me about tonight. I mean, honestly, what is Florida State? What is their motivation at this point?
They have no motivation at this point.
Is the collective going to not cash their checks? I'm waiting for that.
Is it
right?
No, are these guys playing for next year? You know how we hear this in the NFL all the time? Like, well, these careers aren't very long and they have to be playing for their next check. So is Florida State, are these guys putting stuff on tape so that they can go back out to the transfer portal and go land somewhere else? I mean, I really don't know, because I don't know what Florida State's playing for anymore going the rest of the way.
1 in 5 on the season 1-4 in the league. The one win was at home against Cal. I mean, their season's been awful. So if you're sitting there, you're Duke, it's a Friday night. Part of the reason we haven't talked about Duke, other than the Carolina game, is for the most part, Duke's been a classic. Don't make mistakes. Don't beat yourself. Be good on defense, right? Bend, don't break on defense. Be good. And then their quarterback, Malik Murphy, the guy they got from Texas out of the portal, he has not been spectacular.
No.
But he has been good, particularly in late game situations for them. I'm thinking specifically of Carolina and Northwestern. So here you are, you're Duke, and you're sitting here at 5-1, thinking what you're starting the show with. Well, pay a little bit of attention to us. Give us a little bit of love. Like I was down at Sam Jones yesterday, and a Carolina fan stopped. Was like, "Hey man, really love the show." And I said, "That's awesome." And I said, "We're on the same page, right? Like we're ready for basketball. We're like ignoring." He was like, "Yeah," and I'm like, and now we just need Duke to go away, right? Like we don't need Duke having this success, but they obviously have other ideas.
Yeah.
At 5-1, this game marked. So Duke had the week off. That also factors into a little bit of out of sight, out of mind. But this was the game that was supposed to start the tough stretch of Duke's schedule. Remember, the first 6 games were the ones that were manageable. And if you would have told me they could have gone 5-1, I would like, wow, they really maxed out. But they did it. They went 5-1 off of that loss to Georgia Tech. Now they close FSU, SMU, Miami State, VT, Wake. So you're thinking, wow, that's a heck of a slate. Well, that's why they play the games, right?
Meat grinder. That is the ACC. Speaking of Cal, which is Florida State's lone win right now, that was a close game. That was the kind of game that Cal has typically won. They're having the kind of season that is, they have been fortunate on the turnovers this year. They're winning turnover battles. You know who's not winning the turnover margins and it's driving Dave Doran insane?
Yeah, they have a negative turnover margin, which is not great for them. I talked about this with JC Zembel, Wolfpack Central on Law of the Wolf this week. NC State's 90th in total defense, 100th in total offense, and in the 90s in turnover margin.
That's the one that I know Dave Doran talked about it a little bit this week. And it is something that Dave Doran will drive into the conversation related to, what does he love to say? Don't beat yourself.
Yeah.
When they had the be happy we won, the turnaround from Duke last season, is if we just clean up all this crap and we don't beat ourselves, we should be fine. Well, you combine the fact that there's been a drop-off, clearly, from what we thought the season was going to be versus the talent they have and how it's all playing out. A little bit of a drop-off, especially on the defensive side, and they're turning the ball over. You're not going to, it's going to drive Dave nuts. And I don't see this going well for NC State taking on Cal out in California, out in Berkeley. You got that sleepy.
NC State's in last place.
Yeah, they got that
with
sleepy
Cal.
Yep.
And they're a 10-point dog.
I know.
Like,
I know.
Give me the whiplash from the beginning of the season of being 4-1 odds to make the college football playoff to being winless in the league and a 10-point dog at Cal.
I circle you know, much like you circled the JMU North Carolina game as the be on the lookout for this one. I had circled this week for NC State to be the watch them do something that they shouldn't do. You know, lose to the team you shouldn't have lost that will derail you from a great season to it was a good season. But now NC State's, just trying to stop a full derailment in general and just get back on the winning side of things. I did not realize that Cal and NC State had some things in common.
They do.
I didn't realize this. Steven over at Back in the Pack pointed this out. Apparently, there is a mutual distaste for Mac Brown between the two programs. Because I had forgotten about this. Now, yes, it's built in for State fans to not like Mac Brown. I think we all understand. I don't have to explain that.
I know this part of the story without you telling me or me looking it up.
I forgot that in 2004, Aaron Rodgers led Cal was 10-1. Texas was also 10-1. Going into the final weekend of the season, Cal was 4th in the AP, 4th in the BCS. I forgot where Texas was in the AP, but they were 5th in the BCS. And then I think it was Cal finished out the year against Southern Miss, 26-16. Texas also won 26-16 over Texas A&M. Cal fans are convinced to this day that Mac Brown went behind the scenes and politicked to get Texas over Cal into the Rose Bowl.
No. There's no conspiracy here.
I know.
It's his brother. Mac's brother, Watson Brown, was the coach at UAB and had a vote in the coach's poll and put Cal at like 12 or something. Maybe even lower, legitimately, just completely rigged the voting system to put Texas into then a BCS bowl game instead of Cal.
Yeah. I had forgotten about that.
I love Cal all of a sudden.
Well, look, dude,
don't let these old scores go. I like it.
They're not letting these old things go. They also have the Calgorithm, and they are absolutely fantastic on social media. I thought you would appreciate this. This comes from the liberal Calgorithm, woke mob football on Twitter. Last year, Cal was seeking one more vote for ACC inclusion to save the team in the wake of conference realignment. Standing between Cal and salvation was the blockade led by Mac Brown at North Carolina. We have secured the secret CCTV tapes of the final ACC vote. And it's just basically a bunch of superimposed mascot heads over the final scene of Deadpool and Wolverine. I am not going to play the audio of this because it's going to get me absolutely flagged on YouTube in real time. But, you know, the caption for those who are not watching on YouTube is, Oski, you don't need to do this. And then it follows up, I'm not doing it because of money. And then he punches this warp core thing. I'm applying to the ACC to save my program. And that obviously happens. I'll fast forward a little bit because Mac Brown, did you see the Mac Brown superimposed head? Let me see if I'll pause it here real quick. Because this is the big bad from the movie, and they superimposed Mac Brown onto this person.
Oh, there he is. So
Mac Brown's just making sure Cal doesn't get to have nice things, much like the Rose Bowl. And then it scrolls on. Then all of a sudden, like, Tuffy ends up saving the day. And look, it's a wonderful piece of meme art that I am witnessing right now on the live YouTube. And it's just another example where I absolutely love what Cal has brought to the table. And yes, NC State votes yes. They're Wolverine. And of course, everything is saved. Oski owes NC State and Woodson all of the love, man. All of the love. But you know what? It's not all love on the OG Sports Phone, Joe.
919 444-2211. Call the OG Sports Phone and curse or don't.
All right, let's see what we got in call number 1.
Hey, y'all. Calling back just because I don't understand the middle-class analogy you guys keep rolling out week after week when it comes to state football. The sports programs at state and what they do on the field and court, all that, it's not symbiotic. Like, we as fans can expect success in men's basketball for the first time in 40 years without sacrificing football. It's not too much to ask for Dave to not crap his pants anytime the lights get bright. I mean, it's year 12, and he's still got a losing conference record and has overall done poorly against P5 competition. Enough is enough, guys. I don't doubt that he'll be back next year because that's what state does in being cheap and waiting too long to make the right move. But it's going to be rough for him and Boo if he does stick around. The fans have had it. Enough is enough. Time for a change. Anyways, love the program. Bye.
So that's representative. That call is representative of some calls, some emails, and some social media that I have received in our conversation about Dave Doran. And, you know, why won't we just say it's time for him to go? And I think if you had talked to 24-year-old me or 25-year-old me, I probably would have been on the, yeah, man, it's time for Dave Doran to go. Because I was younger, I didn't know any better, and that's classic sports talk radio, right? Fire the coach. But over time, and you start to get a better understanding of how the real world operates, you see that there's a process to this. And I do think that Dave at NC State might have, well, you can make the argument, Joe, that Dave is never winning fans back regardless of what happens over the last 5 years or so. He's never win. The fans that were over Dave 5 years ago are never going to just come back into the fold, right? So my point here is that those who have never liked Dave Doeren to begin with have just been looking for the reason to finally say, yeah, man, it's time. It's time. It's time. Knowing full damn well that the Carolina game has kind of saved the conversation.
Going to say that would be the big difference because he's won that game more frequently in the last 5 years than he did in the first part of his tenure.
But the Carolina game was the trump card. It was the Uno reverse card on people, to put it in your terms. It was an Uno reverse for people who didn't like him. Yeah, say whatever you want. Yeah, we might have should have won that game, but you know what? I won the game that mattered. We're going to a nice bowl. So I think that these calls are just kind of coming out of the woodwork a little bit more now because people feel more emboldened to say, yeah, man, it's time for him to go because what more do you want? We've seen as far as he can go. What I would counter with, and the reason why I don't think it's a simple conversation of, well, yeah, man, he's having a bad year, so Dave clearly has to go, is that he's done enough in the last 5 years to show you that he can scramble when needed. He's done some incredible coaching jobs given the circumstances of what we've seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah, last year stands out top of my brain.
Last year, you go back 2 years. They had 5 different quarterbacks. Okay.
Yeah, you're more inclined to give him credit for that one than I am.
Oh, I give him credit for that one. So I think we can both agree, though, that there's been enough examples of being able to squeeze out pretty good seasons when you lay it out in the full context. Now, if you were to make an argument against Dave, what I would be willing to hear is, okay, you had transitioned over from enough of this scrambling stuff, enough of putting things together with duct tape and barbed wire and all that stuff. We're going in on the portal. We identified a guy at quarterback that we believe in. We've added some pieces. We're going to make a run for it. And then this happens, that you've essentially shown that this is the ceiling and you as a program have to decide if you're comfortable with that ceiling. Fans clearly aren't, but the program has to decide whether or not they're comfortable with that ceiling. And I don't know the answer to that given the administration that exists right now.
Sure. I would just like to talk about this middle class label. Why are people taking that as a derogative?
Because nobody wants to think of themselves as middle class. You and I grew up in a time where being middle class was good.
A good thing.
A good thing. But now we live in a weird world where middle class ain't what it used to be. Okay. And I think it's a negative connotation with that.
Okay, but here let's do this again.
Okay.
I think we did it on a mailbag episode, so I'll show some grace here to the caller.
Mm-hmm.
You and I came to a consensus on who the actual upper elite class is in college football.
Mm-hmm.
I think we only got to 5. Because it was
between
Georgia,
5 and 8. Yeah.
We had Georgia. No, it was Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Texas.
Yeah.
That's 4.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to put Penn State in there, right?
No.
Notre Dame's not in there.
No. So maybe it was 5.
Michigan won it last year. I think you were saying fine on Michigan.
I was fine on Michigan, but you would look at the history of Michigan. They don't win it, man.
Okay.
Anyway.
So what I'm getting at, I would put LSU in there.
Same with Texas.
I would put LSU in there.
All right.
Because of what the consistent success they've had. But think about that. Notre Dame and Penn State aren't even upper class, right? So here's what I would say about middle class. It's not a bad thing, number one. Number two, NC State's estimated collective payroll this year is about $4 million. I just went to a football game at Tennessee, who's not upper class, by the way.
No, they're not.
They're paying their quarterback $11 million.
That's insane.
$11 million.
That's insane to me.
So all I'm trying to say to you, and all you have to do is look at the budgets. NC State is not an upper class. Actually, NC State's one of the lowest Power 4 budgets, if not the lowest. It's like NC State, Texas Tech, and Iowa State have the lowest Power 4 budgets of the public schools. So that takes Boston College and Wake Forest out of the equation. But that's not a bad thing. Pound for pound, money for money, Dave has actually outperformed.
That's what I'm saying.
His resources.
Yes.
There's one lens to look at that.
It's the same thing
Middle
that I would
class is not an insult. Like, get that out of your head.
I've said the same thing about Elliott David and NC State with baseball.
Elliott's got to win left-handed forever.
People want to make this, we got to do this. He's taking as far as we can go. Well, you know what? Given where you are budget-wise, what you're working with, that's pretty freaking good, okay? So Yes, I will double down on the idea that we've gotten to a point in society where saying middle class is actually a derogatory term for a lot of people because
It's not, though.
nobody wants to think of themselves as that. That's kind of where we're at. And obviously, if you're a football fan, you don't want to think of your program as middle class, that you think you can break free from this because I'm going to pick myself up from the bootstraps, Joe.
Big bootstraps energy. I would just say to you, there's nothing wrong with middle class. Now, the big
NC State needs more rich dads is what they need.
Well, the other part I was
So-
just about to say is let's see what the new money does at Oregon, right? Huge win over Ohio State this weekend.
Yeah.
They've been knocking on the door. They've done things as a Pac-12 member. Fascinated to see how Oregon does this year because they have, to your point about how Texas and Ohio State all has all this money,
Mhm.
but what titles do they have in the modern era to show for it? Ohio State's got one. Maybe Texas gets one this year. But money isn't everything.
Look,
At some point, you have to be able to coach.
you know my stance on this. Let me get one of these coaches who's won. It's like if Nick Saban wants a real challenge,
Right.
come coach NC State. That's what I want to see. You thought the Dolphins was not a walk in the park? Yeah, let's see how you do it at NC State. Let's see how you do it at a middle class program in this day and age.
Housekeeping.
Big thanks to Enovana. You can check them out online at enovana.com. Green Cleaning Solutions.
If you have mess inside your mansion or trash in your cabana, get it clean with Enovana.
Head on over to ogtrianglemedia.com. You can sign up for OG fans. You get exclusive podcasts, including that 5th episode of this podcast, the mailbag episode, which drops every Friday. Joe mentioned The Law of the Wolf. That'll be dropping a little bit later on today. ACC Panic Room this weekend. And you can also have Dimitri, SEC apologist, tell you, the ACC fans, to shut up. That was in today's newsletter.
I like it.
Listen to yourself, ACC fans. I believe that was the point of Dimitri's newsletter today. Just listen to yourself, losers. BreakingT.com/OG. You can get hoodies like this. They're very comfortable. So again, go to BreakingT.com/OG.
Meeting? Quick meeting?
Are we having a meeting? Hold on a second. Where's the button? Where's the button? Where's the button? There it is. Meeting time. What's up?
All right. So revised OG hoodie rollback merch update.
We doing a Roback ad now? All right.
I mean, it can be, but I'm
Here
just
we
saying.
Use the promo code OG20, by the way.
Ben says we can do a min run of 12
Okay.
on a hoodie.
Okay.
Would not have our logos like this imprinted on it, but we could get one with a logo on the chest. So one of their existing hoodies,
Yeah.
a solid, we can get a solid and put the dead conference on there, like
Mhm.
on your sweatshirt. We could do the OG flag on a red hoodie, which I think people would respond well to. We could do a black hoodie with the yellow logo on it. We could do a white hoodie with a drunk owl on it.
That's a deep cut. Not a lot of people are going to get the drunk owl, but
Or
yeah.
they have something coming out in March called the AV cart. And we could put our logo
Say no more.
on the AV cart.
Say no more. Now here's
We could put the dead conference logo on the AV cart.
Now here's what I want. Actually, here's what I want. Let's do that AV cart polo, and you're on the back where they can put the North Carolina
Yeah.
flag on there. Can we just put the OG flag on the back?
Ooh. Let's talk to Ben.
And then we could put a dead conference in there too. But I would like to put the OG flag on the back as well.
If it's a shirt, it would be on the sleeve.
Oh, okay.
If it's a hoodie, it would be chest.
What about polo?
Well, that's polo as a shirt.
I want. Oh, you're talking about putting a dead conference on the sleeve.
If it's a shirt,
But if I want, what about the flag on the back though?
we could do on either. Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. Anyway, go to Roback.
No, I'm saying that because we would need to sell 12 of those.
I think we could sell.
we could
12.
sell. We went from selling 200 to 12.
I think we could do that.
All right.
I think we could do that.
We'll put this in the works today. The OG credit card has been paid off today.
Use the
The golf tournament.
goodness.
It's helpful.
All right, so go to roback.com. Use that promo code OG20 to save 20% off your order. I had a corporate champion double feature last night. Hit Longleaf Swine, had the brisket melt, which was fantastic.
They have the melt.
Like you said, this is peak weather for Longleaf right now. Perfect weather. They had the heaters going. I had the brisket melt. Yeah, it's brisket with onion, pickle, and horsey sauce. It's their version of the horsey sauce on a nice bun. Got the collards with it, as I always do. They had pretzel bites last night.
No, they do
In-house
not.
pretzel bites. Really good.
Delicious.
Keeping you on your toes at Longleaf. So go to longleafswine.com to find out more. Then we went over to Two Roosters after that. Kelly wants to be part of the secret pint club.
It's a
She was-
secret.
she
I'm the
was-
only one who's allowed
She was
in.
I had to explain to her, like, not all the pints are the same.
No,
Like, you
no,
get
no.
something,
Right.
and then she would get something totally different.
I
That's
got
all
the
part-
Halloween candy, which I know is a fan favorite.
So head on over to tworoosters.com to find out about that. Better yet, just go to one of their shops. I go to the Person Street location all the time. It's a great spot. And because I already had enough dairy in my life, the dairy-free cookies and cream is clutch. So head on over to tworoosters.com to find out more. Better yet, just go visit. So Matt Brown, Extra Points, is going to jump on here in a second as we're doing this live. I know he keeps popping in and out of the green room here on StreamYard. So Matt, if you can hear me, can you give me a thumbs up? All right, thumbs up. We are in business to talk to Matt Brown. So let me hit this. Let me hit that and say hello to Matt Brown at Extra Points. It's a wonderful newsletter covering the business of college athletics. And sometimes I feel like Matt's Super Bowl is getting into conference realignment, not for the ACC, not for the SEC or the Big Ten, but conference realignment on conferences you didn't even know existed. Matt, what's going on, man?
That is strangely one of the 3 or 4 most profitable niches, I think, for this publication. It's video game esoterica, and increasingly it's information like about multimedia rights contracts. Like if you want to know what's going to happen in the Southland,
yeah,
I am your Huckleberry. If you want to know what's going to happen with the ACC, like hell if I know, ask Pete Thamel.
Well, this is why I reached out to you today, because we had a couple of listeners point out some budgetary crunching things happening at Campbell.
Yeah,
the Camels had a really good wrestling program.
Yep,
and it seems, based on news reports, that the wrestling program is now decimated in terms of scholarship count. And there is in talking to a source, if you will, it seems like what's happening at Campbell is a combination of multiple factors. One of them is compounding mistakes in who you've hired to be your AD and the president and how they budget these things. And obviously there's COVID and how we're still dealing with the effects of COVID on budgets for smaller schools in smaller conferences. And they're trying to make sure that their basketball and football programs keep the lights on. And if it comes at the expense of an Olympic sport, so be it. And that seems to be playing out at Campbell right now. And I feel like these are the canaries for a lot of other smaller schools going forward. What's your read on what's going on?
Yeah, part of me is pretty frustrated that Campbell hasn't just come out and said what's being cut. You know, I've heard the same rumors I think that you have. I had people in the wrestling community reach out to me.
We lost. Did we lose Matt's audio? What do we got here? Oh, he got unplugged.
He hit his own mute.
Or unplugging there. This is live, folks. This is live. Oh, we lost Matt there for a second. We'll get Matt back here in a second. This is you know what it was? What was it?
It's Gaylord, the camel.
Oh, doesn't want us to talk about it.
He's trying to get us some info here.
Yeah.
And if anyone's going to get us Big South info, it's Matt Brown.
It's Matt Brown. While we wait for Matt to come on back, since we are in live mode here, typically this would all be edited, is what it is. When I said compounding mistakes, I think one mistake that we make when we talk about college athletics is that we think, and we've talked about this with Holden Thorpe over at North Carolina, oftentimes, while we think college sports is like the main driver of everything, and that's what we think about all the time, a lot of time college presidents are not thinking about that. They have other things they're worried about. And when they're they're thrust in this position to make these decisions for athletics, they might not be making the most educated or smartest decisions when it comes to athletics. And sometimes you end up in that situation. I think Matt is back. I think we got our audio back.
We did. Yes. Can you hear me now? Okay. Terrific.
Okay. So where were we? You were frustrated. Yeah. You were frustrated with Campbell for not just straight up coming out. And obviously there's a big wrestling community out there.
There is, right? So I had people in the wrestling world saying, yeah, Campbell's planning on slashing this to 2 or 3 scholarships rather than 9. They were allegedly telling athletes that were on scholarship, you can stay here and be on scholarship, but then you can't compete because you're trying to cycle people out of the roster to save some money. And that dynamic is not going to be uncommon at the power level, as schools like Ohio State, like they just did this with men's gymnastics. I imagine the Michigans and Texases and UNCs of the world may do this for a couple of schools, not to drop the program completely, but try to save salary cap room by essentially turning some of these smaller things into Division III. It's less common to see that at the Campbell level, because generally, if you're going to have a scholarship Olympic sports program and you're not going to fully fund the entire thing anyway, you're doing that for enrollment purposes. You're doing that for revenue otherwise. And so I would love to talk to somebody there and hear their rationale about how this actually saves the school money. The thing, whether it's Campbell, whether it's High Point, whether it's Western Carolina or any of these kind of programs, even when we talk about football and basketball as revenue sports, those programs aren't keeping the lights on because those programs lose money too.
Mhm.
The thing that's keeping the lights on are student fees and the university subsidy for everything else. None of this stuff's profitable. So that's what I would want to understand. I'm not necessarily saying they made the wrong decision, but I think you have to talk through that math a little bit. And what, as I understand it, you have a lot of private schools in North Carolina, just like in the neck of the woods here in the Great Lakes and in the Northeast, that are struggling for reasons that have nothing to do with sports. If you're somebody that's considering paying extra tuition for a Christian-based education, you have a lot of options in North Carolina. Maybe you don't want to spend as much money to go to a place like Campbell, and you might be able to get a different kind of education online or in the 12 other schools there. And that leads to kind of budget crunches across the school.
Wait. Go back though. What do you mean when you say nothing's profitable?
What I mean
themselves, or
no, I mean, there's very few basketball programs in this country, even from the Power 5 level down to the WAC, that are generating more revenue explicitly through basketball than their expenses. Like, you're not selling enough tickets in the Big South or anything to go automatically pay for everybody's salary.
Gotcha.
You're not the you and I could probably afford to go buy ribbon boards in the basketball arena for some of these things. It's not $100,000 to go get a scoreboard at. So the only way that you make the budgets work is through student fees and through other revenue distributed to the university. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Like, that's a completely legitimate use of that money, I think. But it's not the same calculus as North Carolina football.
So my curiosity, are we seeing that there are some schools like Campbell that still think there is a college realignment?
Now, we should point out Campbell added football in 03 or
It's a relatively
04?
new program.
They just changed leagues. Trying to enhance the visibility of that program.
And that's what I was getting at, right? That's what I was getting at. That there are still some schools that are operating under this idea that if you start up football now, you ramp yourself up to a particular level, you can be a JMU, right? Or you can be App State from a couple of years ago. And really kind of find yourself in the football promised land. But not everybody gets to do that. And at some point, you're just kind of shuffling around. There's just as many examples of ECU, who had a proud football tradition, that are struggling right now because of conference realignment, rather than schools that are jumping into the big boy race. And I feel like Campbell might be another example of that.
It's entirely possible. I mean, the tricky thing about private schools is that even if I ask very nicely, they don't always send me their tax returns, or I don't go through their itemized budgets. But you're right. Like, this was a Pioneer League football team for years. They
Playing
just
like San Diego
and we've had a couple of national stories about, like, holy crap, the Camels are recruiting Sunbelt guys. They're bringing in all these stars. They haven't won anything. And that, again, I'm not saying that like to trash the program. It's just the stubborn little thing about college football is that somebody wins and loses every game. Winning is not an administrative strategy. It's not a budget strategy. You can't say the checks are going to all cash and we're all going to be okay as long as we win 10 games every year and win a playoff game, because football doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Their quarterback is the one who replaced the NIL guy at UNLV and has been outstanding. That's a Campbell player. Campbell transfer.
Yeah, go Camels. I'm sure there's plenty of good football players.
They like to say roll humps.
Roll humps.
Roll humps.
I like that.
Roll humps and things. Okay. And I'm trying to tie this to Campbell not being the only school that deals with these kinds of things. Yeah. And they've had compounding mistakes with administrative changes, whether it's an outgoing president hiring an AD that didn't necessarily pan out, And all these things after a while just kind of compounding. Because if you don't have that much money and you're trying to move up in this business, my guess is that your destination isn't Campbell. Campbell's just the place along the way to your destination, right? So how much of that is in play with people making decisions that might not necessarily be there for a long time? And how is that comparable to other places of a similar stature?
Oh, shoot. I mean, that's everywhere. That's one of the big governance challenges in college athletics, right?
Mhm.
We see this a little bit in pro sports too. The GM who thinks that he's going to get fired next year has every incentive to trade all the draft picks or to make all kinds of crazy decisions knowing that they're not going to be there. Nobody gets promoted because they were great financial stewards. You don't get a fancy plaque at NACDA and get SPJ to write a glowing profile of you because you did such a great job balancing your budget. You do because you brought home the Director's Cup, because you cut some ribbons and you got some big checks. And so everyone's whether you're a coach, an AD, a university president, a provost, a lot of people in this system are incentivized just to look 2 or 3 years in front of them because they recognize either this doesn't work out and I'm going to get fired, or it does kind of work out and I can go take the Kennesaw State job, or I can do something else and somebody else has to go deal with it. And when you're at a place that doesn't have a $50 million a year athletic budget, I'm going to guess Campbell's probably somewhere between the high 20s and low 40s off the top of my head. But if you're in that ballpark, you don't have a huge margin of error.
Yeah.
You don't have 11 billion, rich guys that you can go to kind of pay for buyouts or paper over some of your mistakes. So if you mess up 2 or 3 times in a row, you do have to make some difficult questions. And that was Chicago State's problem for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
That was a UT Arlington problem. That was, God knows, that was a Florida International problem. They're just now kind of digging out from. Competent, it all matters. Yeah,
I'm of the opinion for a lot of these schools, there's no reason for you to be playing sports, or there's no reason for you to be playing football. There's just none. I don't understand. I know there's been studies of schools that have decided that we're going to stop playing football. It's ended up actually being more beneficial to them.
Yeah, but in fairness, Campbell has a really good baseball program and has had a competitive wrestling program. And there's been other sports that they've been good at.
I'm saying specifically football.
Okay.
Football is the big shiny object that everybody's trying to chase because money. And sometimes that ain't it, man.
Like what?
No, I hear this has come up a little bit in my beat across the country over the last week and a half, because there's a big conversation right now out west about, hey, the Mountain West and the Pac-12 might have some openings. Let's move up, right? Like let's move our football team to the next level.
Sure.
So what I think people everywhere need to understand is if you're going to play college football, whether it's FBS, mid-majors, FCS, Division III, that is an institutional level commitment, because you can't just rent some high school field, get some secondhand helmets, hire one coach, and roll out the ball. You need so many support personnel because the roster is so huge.
Mm-hmm.
At the FCS level, if you want to go up there and say, we want to start playing Nevada and UNLV, the numbers we were hearing out of the Big Sky offices and from some of these ADs is you have to increase your annual spending by $14 to $18 million a year, which is, that might be half of what Campbell's entire athletic budget is. That's not just, and that's not even saying anything about the $5 million entrance fee.
Yeah.
So if you're not committed to doing that by like taking money from the paleontology department or committed to expanding headcount by 30 people, you can't do it. And we've seen people try to do this on a discount. You can't run a college football program at Costco. Like you have to be all in or don't do it.
And this number, Matt, better than I would off the top of my head. I can Google it, but the local schools for a long time couldn't play Campbell because while you're allowed to play a 1AA team, they need to have a certain amount of scholarships in order for it to even count as a win. So it wasn't until like last year or the year before that Campbell finally played Carolina. I know they're playing state next year, and someone had pointed out in our comments that 07 was their first year of football.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, because remember, Pioneer League teams, which is what they were for a long time, is essentially Division III football, but with Division I facilities. And they might occasionally play an FBS team, but that's generally because, there was a hurricane. We need a body. It doesn't. Right. It counts in the record books. It doesn't count towards bowl eligibility. I want to say you needed like 60 scholarships, 58 scholarships to be in there. So they kind of had 1 foot in D3, 1 foot in D1 for a little while. If you want to move up here, great. We're not seeing the results on the field, and that's in a very different CAA than what maybe you and I might remember from 7 or 8 years ago. I don't know for a fact if we're dropping wrestling scholarships because we want to go all in on basketball. That's what the conversation I want to have. If that's the thought, I think that's a bad idea.
We'll close on this, and Matt Brown from Extra Points is joining us. Great newsletter if you're interested in the business of college sports. And we've talked about this related to NC State. The terminology has been used that they're a middle class program. Some NC State fans have been upset about this, but I see where things are going in the Big Ten and the SEC and all the money that's coming in. How do you compete? How close are we to what you would consider a Power 4 school on the bottom end finding themselves in this situation with all the travel now that's involved? Like NC State's going out to Cal to play on Saturday. We just did ACC tip-off, and I'm thinking about even more travel for the likes of Stanford, Cal, and SMU to get to various places. That racks up after a while. How close are we to what's going on at Campbell with all these budgetary things happening to what would be considered a Boston College or a Georgia Tech or a Wake Forest?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, we're seeing this at Ohio State. And Ohio State has the athletic budget of Guatemala. Like they have the money. They're just choosing not to do it. That we're going to see this all across the board.
Yeah,
it fundamentally isn't a question, I think, so much about revenue as it is about values and where you want to spend that money. Like, so NC State's got an athletic budget. I have it open here on another tab. Roughly 120 million in revenue a year. Could you, if you absolutely needed to, and this is part of what I write about, find an extra 10 million in couch cushions and throw the Cookout logo on the jerseys and sell sponsorship rights to stuff that you don't really want to do? And could you do that? You could. And that's going to pay for some of that travel. But it's fundamentally, hey, if I got to pay 22 million to athletes, I'm going to have to completely change my fundraising paradigm elsewhere. Maybe it's not, especially if my donors and my fans say it's not worth it. And then you'll see some of those cuts. Where I think BC specifically is like fascinating, because I think BC is a rare school in the Power 4 where I could say we can afford to do this. And then ideologically, we just don't want to. We're just going to go play Jesuits in Division 3 now.
I could see that.
It doesn't have to be all or nothing, though, Matt. Right? Like if BC wants to be Division 1 in hockey.
The truth is, right now, I don't think we know.
Okay.
We have Division 3 schools that play D1 hockey, and we have a couple that do wrestling and volleyball and a few other things. And schools have proposed NCAA changes to allow it to be easier to do pick and choose, and those get voted down. I don't mean to be like hyperbolic, but nobody has any idea what the NCAA is going to be in 4 years, if it even exists, which I think makes this really, scary if you're an AD, because now you're trying to make these plans here, figure out how you want to budget, where your school wants to be. And there's so much uncertainty. Like, could you imagine spending $45 million to change conferences and move up and make a little bit more in your TV deal? And then Carolina, Florida State, and Clemson say, bye, we're going to the HBO Super League presented by Saudi Arabia. And now you're in the hole and you don't even have the same basketball tournament anymore. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows, man. Nobody knows. No. Matt Brown, Extra Points. We appreciate the time, man. As always, we'll talk to you later.
You bet. Thanks, friends. Take care.
Yeah, I could see us. Do you want to cover one of those one of these days? I could do that. You know who absolutely crushes it with the small schools and their logos? Home Field. Go to homefieldapparel.com and get yourself a hoodie, a shirt, a hat, a pullover. They got the bomber jackets. They got everything at Home Field. It's absolutely fantastic. So go to homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code OG24.
I know the pop-up tour is in Austin this week.
Getting updates on the pop-up tour.
Our guy Josh, man, saw it firsthand this week. You fall in love with them. You get near them, you'll fall in love.
So again, go to homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code OG24 to save 15% off your order. Big thanks to Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. Mosquito Authority with all the service. They text you, hey, we're on the way. Hey, anything that we should know? Hey, is there something else we can do? That is Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. So check them out, bugsbite.com. Speaking of service, Matt Davis, State Farm, has you covered for home and auto. We're going to be out there for Halloween for an OG Live brought to you by the Butcher's Market. I will be rocking a red polo. Very excited about that. You can call them directly at 919-779-8277. InsureGarner.com or theoginsurance.com. All right, over to the NFL, where the Panthers are going to get Jonathan Brooks back after a torn ACL he suffered back in November. They understood what the deal was. They liked what they had seen regardless. They drafted him knowing full well that it might be a bit of time to get him on the football field. My understanding is that it went a little bit longer than they anticipated. It is what it is, but it's looking like they're going to come back. You're probably asking, Ovies, why are you bringing this up? I said, well, because Jonathan Brooks is part of the next phase for the Carolina Panthers and Dave Canales and what you should be looking for. They are not going to be making the playoffs. They are not going to be winning the division. I know we had joked with our friend Julian Council over at Locked On Panthers that, hey, look at the standings. They're one game out. They're this, they're that. At the time, I understood, totally get it. From here on out, it's all about proof of concept for who you have drafted, who you've acquired, and understanding what you need to address in the offseason to make Dave Canales' offensive system work. Because with defense, I think we can understand what the defense is. They're decimated.
Not good.
It's not good. They're decimated. We talk about compounding mistakes. A lot of that has happened on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, they're actually the worst defense in the NFL.
So there you go. Nowhere to go but up, Joe.
Mhm.
You want to tell us something
Tell me
good?
something good.
Hey, man, when it comes to the defense,
Tell me something good.
telling you right now, there's nowhere to go but up. Speaking of telling you something good,
Tell me something good.
turns out, according to Mr. Marshall, tell you something good. The Panthers are number one at something. It just happens to be the highest beer inflation in the league. Oh, well, that's unfortunate. Apparently, the Panthers price back in 2013 was $4.36. I don't believe you. I don't believe an NFL beer at any point in time cost $4.36 at its lowest. Come on now. Or the average price. Now it's apparently $10.56. 142% change. Inflation. You want to talk about inflation? Talk about that Storm Brew inflation over at Lenovo Center. It's $11.50 now. It's ridiculous. Anyway, this is all one big wind-up, lead-up to the question that I've seen this week that I don't understand. And the question is, when will Bryce Young start again for the Carolina Panthers? The argument is, well, they haven't won a game outside the initial Andy Dalton bump against the Raiders. They had one atrocious game against the Chicago Bears, but the two other games that they lost were offensively competent, but with some problems, right? Interceptions, that kind of stuff, right? I think in the game against the Bengals, it was empty possessions. They had driven into the red zone, couldn't cash it in. You got to come away with touchdowns there against the Bengals and Joe Burrow. Didn't work out that way. And I guess I can answer the question, when will Bryce Young start again, with why do you want him to start again? What more do you need to see out of Bryce Young at this point? What question are you trying to answer? I'm being absolutely sincere when I ask that question. What are you trying to see?
Well, teams have moved on for less. I understand that. Maybe not from pick 1-1, but we've seen Josh Rosen be shipped off for parts, a second-round pick, actually, after 1 year as a first-round pick for the Arizona Cardinals. Okay, I would say this to you: if Dalton, if this was a Steve Wilkes situation, where they were competitive and a game out in the division, you sit there and you ride Dalton and Chuba and you try to grind this thing out and see if you can steal a playoff spot. The way Atlanta's playing, and as you already outlined at 1-5, they're going nowhere. So I understand in the other situation of giving your team hope, telling the locker room, hey, we haven't given up on the season. But I would say, I've already said this, I'll say it again, I would start Dalton through the Kansas City game. I would even keep Jonathan Brooks on the bench until through the Kansas City game. Then on December 1st, I would start Brooks, I would start Young, I would start Liggett, I would start the tight end, I'd start all of them, let him out there for the final month of the season. And if Bryce, and you explicitly tell Bryce Young, this is your month to earn and prove yourself and earn the job. If you do not play well in this month, we are moving on from you in the offseason. I think given what they've sunk into him and given the situation that they're in, that it's really not harming them to put him back out there. It's not at this point.
It's not harming him, but is it harming other players?
Well, I mean, that's immaterial now because of the situation that they're in.
Because I think where we are at now, knowing that there is no playoff hope for the Carolina Panthers, you as a head coach and Dave Canales are trying to figure out, what do I have in my system that I'm trying to prove to the owner of why you hired me?
Sure.
You hired me because I'm a quarterback guy and I was supposed to fix Bryce Young, but sometimes you have to look at the guy and say, hey man, this ain't fixable. You know, it's like the conversation I had with Jacob about his phone. You know, he thought he could stick that phone in rice in 24 hours, but it's like, yeah, buddy, you destroyed this phone so badly, it is beyond repair. We have to get you a new one. And in the case of Bryce Young, it might work out somewhere else, but I don't think he's repairable in Charlotte going forward. And the reason why I double down on this, what Dave Canales is doing, is all you have to do is look at the production of the guys that they've brought on with Bryce Young on the field and without Bryce Young on the field. Every single key piece has seen an increase in production with Andy Dalton as the quarterback. So what makes you think, based on the first 2 games we saw out of the first part of the season, that the production will continue along that trajectory? So that's why
But what does it get you? It doesn't get you any. He made the move in week 3.
Yeah.
As you pointed out, because the rest of the team was like, hey, we have some other players here. We can be competitive if you give us a chance and a real quarterback.
What does it get you? It gets you a functional offense.
Right. But what I'm saying to you is, again, I would start Dalton for the next 4 games.
Okay.
I would go into the open date, and then I would make a choice. And I would go through the Kansas City game, because you don't need to play Kansas City's defense. I'm serious.
No.
Just go to the final.
That's fair.
To the final month of the season. They have 1, 2, 3, 4. They have 6 games in the final month of the season somehow, because it goes into the January, week 1 of January. I would just then look at it, and I would explicitly say that to him. This is your chance. Then you have no doubt, right? Like 2 games, though, beginning of the season, right, where he was mentally, where their offensive line is, and all of these things as we see now. The first month of the NFL season, the second month, you start seeing scoring, you start seeing line play be better. Also, right now, they have some injuries on the offensive line.
Yeah.
Maybe by December 1st, that you could give him a clean look at it and say, here it is. Here's your last chance. I think that's the prudent thing to do, given the price that you paid for him. You will eventually have to swallow and get over what you paid for him and the mistake you made in drafting him. You will have to square all of those things, but you will at least give yourself an extended look in this very unique situation. I think that's the way to go about it.
As Ken points out, the tension around developing the skill players versus trying to improve the perceived value of Brusento, improved trade offers, is interesting. Look, that's what I think it comes back down to. And I will hammer this point the rest of the way in terms of what exactly are you accomplishing by putting Bryce Young back out there. I think the answer is known. I think Dave Canales saw enough in the preseason and in the first 2 games of the season and what they've had with Andy Dalton out there on the field to understand, while you can't put your future in Andy Dalton at age 36, you also can't put your future in a quarterback that was literally getting you nothing in terms of running this offense. They're taking shots down the field. The wide receivers are actually seeing upticks in yardage. Even the running game is slightly more improved because it's not so easy. You have to take into account, oh man, they might throw the ball here, right? So I think it's also easier for Dave Canales to coach the offense the way that he wants without also trying to make something happen like fetch. It's just not going to happen for Bryce Young. I know that's usually goes against the grain of let's give it some time, let's give it some time, let's give it some time. But sometimes, man, like you'd like to say, you see it in the first 7 seconds. Well, with Bryce Young, we saw it all the last season and the first 2 games of this season. The fact that they were hiding him in the preseason, I think we have our answer. So to answer the question, when should we see Bryce Young? I see what you're saying. Last month of the season, there ain't nothing left. You're just trying to get some tape and a better understanding of what you truly need to address. But I think that's already happened now with continuing to play Andy Dalton. And there was zero wiggle from Dave Canales this week too, as to like what was going to happen this week. No, it's Andy's team. And I think it's going to be Andy's team the rest of the way. Now, elsewhere in the NFL, because nobody's talking about the Panthers. Who cares about the Panthers? The real drama in the NFL this week is actually going on in Pittsburgh. Oh, poor Paul. I missed the Panther free guarantee. That was yesterday.
Wednesday
is the Panther free guarantee.
We still like YouTube money, Paul. It's a thing.
So yesterday, Mike Tomlin.
Oh boy. We're back.
Steelers head coach.
You knew we were going to get here. You knew eventually we were going to get here.
Dude, this is weird to me, man. This is weird to me.
The
Not gonna lie.
second they signed Russ and Fields, you knew at some point this conversation was going to be a
So
thing.
let's have some context here. Russell Wilson was brought to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He is named the starter, but then he has a calf issue, and that has kept him off the field. And Justin Fields has helped lead them to a 4-2 mark. So people are making this big deal out of the fact of like, how can you take a quarterback who's got a winning record with you off the field for Russell Wilson? And the only conclusion that I can come up with is that people just don't like Russell Wilson and they like Justin Fields. Now, I'm not trying to give you a reason as to why you should like Russell Wilson. I'm just telling you the facts. People don't like Russ's aura. Okay. As Bomani Jones texted you and me last night, I want to give him proper credit on this one. I want to make sure I get this right because it was a funny joke because local Bomani came out of the woodwork yesterday. He said, can't lose a job to injury is the new let's ride. Okay. And he's right because I texted with Brooke today, who covers the Steelers for ESPN. I said, hey, correct me if I'm wrong. Mike Tomlin's very much a believer of you're not going to lose your job to injury, right? She's like, yes, he's never Wally pipped somebody. Okay, cool. Because I keep seeing this floated out there. Man, a promise must have been made to Russell Wilson. Yeah, a promise must have been made. People have tried to connect the partial owner, the Acrisure guy, who apparently has a connection with Russell Wilson, like they're business partners. And that's what helped lead Russell Wilson to take a minimum deal with the Steelers. I'm like, okay. And people are acting as though that guy who's a partial owner of Acrisure has some sort of say as to what Mike Tomlin's going to do. No, man, give Mike Tomlin some damn credit. The guy is true to his word. If I named you the starter and I don't believe in you losing your job to injury, well, then the minute you're ready to go, you're going to go back out there. This is not complicated, but people want to see like there's something deeper here. There's not anything deeper. Just say you don't like Russ. Now, if you wanted to make the case for Justin Fields is doing something right now that Russell Wilson can't do anymore. And what is that, Joe?
Run.
Bingo. And Mike Tomlin, are you okay?
My nose.
You're struggling today. But you know what? You're not going to lose your job to injury.
No.
You can't lose your job. Nobody can fire you.
Probably not technically true.
No, I don't think I could fire you.
I think maybe you could.
Could
but
I?
I think so.
Could I? Anyway, back to the topic at hand. Bottom line, people don't like Russ.
Yeah, Russ is a phony baloney.
Right.
He's done this to himself.
He has done this to himself. I want you to tell me what this means. What that means, Joe. This was from last week. This was this is from
my guy.
This is from
my guy Arthur Smith.
Yes, Brian Botko, who covers the Steelers for one of the papers up in Pittsburgh. Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith says he's really enjoyed working with Justin Fields. Quote, there's no drama to him.
I told you I liked him.
He doesn't try to live through his avatar or create a perception. That's probably why he is so endearing to his teammates in Chicago, or was. Extremely coachable, extremely bright. He continued, same thing as a play caller. You get in this business, people start making excuses, rationalizing, put whatever they want on social media and make sure certain narratives get leaked out. He's old school. Joe, is Arthur Smith talking about Russell Wilson, or am I just reaching here?
No, he's subtweeting him in real life.
Jeez, man.
I knew I liked Arthur Smith.
Whew.
I knew I advocated to Bubba Cunningham to hire him for a reason.
Goodness.
Wasn't just the FedEx money.
Goodness. And of course, there's the Justin Fields feel-good story. Justin Fields met with the media today. Very candid. I don't think I played good enough, if I'm being real with you.
I mean, I don't think I played, good enough. If I'm being real with you. If I'm being real with myself, I think I did play well enough. I don't think there would be any sort of we got a few wins. Of course, we're glad about that, but there's areas that I can be better at, and I'm just gonna continue to work on those and continue to get better.
So there you go.
Is that a mix minus problem?
No, that's you'll notice this.
Why were we getting so much of the background there?
It's
and not him.
It's the microphone on the iPhone.
It picks up all of the background.
If you're using the spatial Like, so they have.
Will I ever get the mixed minus thing right?
No, you're never gonna get the
No.
mixed minus thing right.
Okay.
You're never gonna get.
Who
that
tried
right.
to teach me the mixed minus thing?
Will.
Okay.
Will did, and that has to do with what's in the board. What you're hearing is the way Apple's iPhone collects sound.
Okay.
And
I mean, I heard a lot of the guys in the background and none of him.
That's why you got to get one of those little Rode things that you plug in. It's a directional. With the fuzzy? You get that directional, and it'll pop it right on Justin Fields. And you'll hear everything he has to say. When we go to our next bit.
Paul, it's a running joke.
Oh, what? That's not even close to what mixed minus is. Yeah, no. We've tried to explain what mixed minus is in relation to a board and what you hear and the person over the phone hears, or what the person on the other end hears. That's mixed minus. Okay, that has nothing to do with it. It all has to do with how the iPhone picks up stereo sound. Okay, that's all. Anyway, if you take anything from this conversation, know this: people are sick of Russ's shit. But Mike Tomlin is that dude. And if Mike Tomlin says you're the starter, well, then you're going to be the starter.
And who do they play this week?
Oh, geez. I forgot off the top of my head they were playing this week. I don't have it in front of me.
Because I have a Steelers over bet on the season.
We'll get to that in a second. If Russ does not play well, what makes you think
play the Jets?
Oh, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. If they lose to the Jets, then I'm sure they're going to go back to Justin Fields and we'll never hear from Russell Wilson again. Simple as that. Simple as that. Big thanks to DraftKings. Check them out online. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the promo code OG24. You bet $5, you will get $5 in. You bet $5, you will get $200 in bonus bets, thanks to our friends at DraftKings. So if you really feel froggy, as Joe likes to say, about the Jets and the Steelers, because Russell Wilson is back, which, by the way, just because he took first team reps, watch him not start. Watch him not start this week. But if you're feeling froggy about it, by all means, take advantage of it. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app today.
You might think this one is crazy, but UAB has identified themselves as the worst team in college football.
Okay.
They are a 2-touchdown underdog on the road against South Florida. Yes, South Florida's 2-4, but they've had some injury issues. That is my hammer play of the week. South Florida -13.
So it's really easy. If you're just looking for something like anytime touchdown, you are watching the Canes play and you think, hey, I think Aho's going to score. All that's available to you. They even have pre-built single game parlays, which I'm a big fan of. It's all on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the promo code OG24. You use that. You bet $5. You will get $200 in bonus bets. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball.
Whew, we are way over, folks, and I might need to chill when this podcast is over, which is why we keep that thing on us in the fridge, thanks to Nature's Relief.
We do.
Head on over to Nature's Relief hempstore.com, RELEAF hempstore.com. Being super stressed and on the go last week, the CBDN has been clutch, thanks to our friends at Nature's Relief. Also, be on the lookout for our 919 Vice episode featuring Jennifer from Nature's Relief, where if you're curious about how the laws are changing and how that affects us and the differences between various products, very educational podcast episode coming out this week. So head on over to nature'sreliefhempstore.com. Let's say you went to Nature's Relief and you got some pretty powerful gummies. May I suggest before you get home and take one of those gummies that you drop by Breeze Through and get yourself some salty snacks.
Get the double OG. Do the double.
Get yourself some Nature's Relief and then go get the Funyuns and then just chill, man. Just
watch
chill.
a movie. Relax.
Although for me, it's actually the peanut butter filled pretzels.
Oh, those are good.
I will crush those.
Yeah.
Crush them.
You have a peanut butter thing. You like Reese's. It's like the only sweet thing that you like.
It is the last sweet thing I truly like.
Yeah.
Is peanut butter. So head on over to breezethrough.com. And yeah, by the way, they have gas. Just in case you
Save
forgot.
money.
Just in case you forgot. So we went over to Invisalign today.
Yes, we did.
This requires a little bit of context for people who might not have caught this episode.
Okay.
There's a recurring bit with Sebastian Aho of the Carolina Hurricanes. This all started when he used to be a neighbor of mine, and we invited him over to my house to play a Finnish game called Mulki. You can watch it on YouTube. Just look up Mulki Sebastian Aho. Joe, you lost at the last minute.
Yeah, it was a collapse. But I was chalking it more up to him being, having great hand-eye coordination and me never playing the game before.
No, he really does. He really does. Then we followed that up with a Dutch shuffleboard.
Yeah, that was operator error. I choked. He outperformed me in that one. That was a tough one.
So I thought, these are two physical hand-eye coordination items. What if we just did hand-eye coordination, no physical video games? Now, he's a video game player, but how good is he at old school Tetris? So we brought the Nintendo and a Tetris over to Invisalign ahead of a practice or after a practice. And you laid down the bet for him before we started playing.
Same stakes. Your week's salary versus my week's salary.
I haven't seen those salaries, though.
That's the real trick, though. I've paid you.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it is, though.
Oh.
My week's salary is nothing.
Okay.
Nothing. So.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Now we can play for the pride.
Wanted to play for the pride. You didn't want to play for the pride, though. You wanted to play for the money.
No.
So you ended up beating him. You ended up getting, I think you got, 87 lines on Tetris?
I nearly doubled them.
You got 150 lines on Tetris.
Yeah.
So it was time to go collect.
Mm-hmm.
So we went over to Invisalign Arena today ahead of their 10-day road
they're
trip.
gone forever.
Yeah, they're gone for 10 days. Shout out to the North Carolina Fair. And the looks that we were receiving when we walked into weight comp.
Thanks to our friends at Color Graphics.
Yes, with a 5-foot check. Gigantic. It's a gigantic check. And you dragged that thing into the locker room. And Aho, you tell me how his face looks on this one.
Wow. $0 and 0 cents. Congrats.
What do you have to present it to me?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because, like a bet is a bet. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. What?
Now why? Now you have to explain why it's $0.
It's off season. There's no. It was played for 1 month salary, right? That was the bet. 1 week. 1 week. Sorry, 1 week.
So that week you got nothing.
Yeah, that was off season, so we don't get paid on the off season. So off season, whatever.
When does the first direct deposit hit for you then?
Well, I think it starts from the game one. So I don't know.
Are you impressed with the quality of this check, though?
Yeah. I am. And I'm impressed when you beat me. But obviously, honestly, he had no pressure. So it's kind of win is a win. Win is a win.
All right. You get. By the way, you get to call the next game.
Oh yeah.
Your call.
Give us some like battleship.
Yeah, we'll go in the ring. We'll go boxing.
All right.
No.
Yes.
On skates. It's going to have to be on skates. You boxing on skates. Mike Jones caught. I still can't believe the check was 0-0-0-0-0-20. You got the little Easter egg.
Not bad.
Not bad. So anyway, good. Big thanks to Sebastian Aho for being a good sport. We do have to decide our next game, though.
Yeah, I'm down with the battleship. Maybe Hungry Hippos.
All right. Big thanks to our friends at Happy and Hale. You can check them out at the arena if you are looking for healthy but very filling options at the arena.
Let's take a break. Let's take a hockey break. Brought to you by Happy and Hale.
I am in must-have green smoothie mode to detox from all of last week. It is coming through in the clutch. I also might need to detox too because I got a food recall.
Yeah, you were saying you got a text from Costco?
Yeah, I got a text and an email that one of the items that I had purchased as a pre-made meal from Costco was part of an outbreak.
Oh.
Yeah. So I might have to be keeping it chill for a bit. I'm a ticking time bomb, folks. I don't know what's going to happen on the rest of the show. Anyway, I never have to worry about that with Happy and Hale, though, because they're good, awesome, whole food. So head on over to Happy and Hail. By all means, check them out in the arena as well. And they got the app. The app is clutch. You can order food on the app. And when you get that food on the app, you can just pick it up and go, all thanks to our friends at Happy and Hail. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline is our old friend Sara Civian, who has a brand new newsletter. I've heard those are all the rage in 2024. The Civ Report on Substack. She is Sara Civian. Civ, what up?
Not much. Just enjoyed some Carolina Hurricanes hockey last night. Ready to chat and ready to talk about myself and my Substack. As always.
It was a must-win situation for the Carolina Hurricanes against the Devils, right?
Isn't it always? It wasn't a lose one. You can't lose it, but not a must-win. It was for Kochekov's season. Can't call him Kuchi anymore. Kochekov's season.
Yes. It's interesting. Joe and I were talking about this, and the Canes, I think we will have a harder time transitioning from the Canes not being a national darling for Stanley Cup consideration to what they are now, which is a good team that'll be in the hunt for the division, make the playoffs, and then you just kind of let it go from there. I have a feeling that Rod's probably okay with that, more so than what they were dealing the last couple of years, where it was about the window and getting things done. And he's always going to go for the cup, obviously, but those outside, national pressure things aren't really there this season for the Canes.
It's just so funny because what makes a narrative? Like, you had that with the Devils, and now everybody is like, they were over them last year. And now this year, it's like they're going to win the cup or else. And it's like one person starts the narrative and it keeps going. And I get that there are legitimate factors, right? Like with the Hurricanes, the influx, the in and outs, and what has changed around the team. But I completely agree with the lack of pressure. Maybe I'm spin zoning a little bit, but I do think, what did they accomplish in their cup window, and who gets to say it's a cup window or not?
Yeah.
People criticized Teuvo Teravainen for years while he was there. Now he's gone, and it's like they're never making the cup now. Tony's in Russia, like, go out, see you later, cup.
Yeah, that is kind of funny in that you bang on these guys for not getting it done. They move on, and they move a chunk of their roster for a variety of different reasons, and now people are freaking out. And I think you referenced it. I think the thing that Giglio and I are curious about as the season goes on, is there going to be a true transition in net? I know Rod's already annoyed with goalie questions. He's not going to tell you who the goalie is. There's 82 of these that he has to worry about. But I think he was very clear in the post game when the season wrapped up, and in his conversation with us in the offseason, that Freddie wasn't at that level. So now the question is, can Kochetkov get to that level? And I guess that's what the regular season will be finding out.
Yeah, I just think it's, if not now, then when. We've been waiting on it for a few years, and he's been kind of stewing in the whole AHL situation now that it was a mess. It's been a mess. I think you have to, obviously they're keeping him in the NHL, but give him a real legitimate shot like you did yesterday. This isn't your old Hurricanes defense, which makes it harder for him, but it's just going to get even harder. I think you see what you're dealing with now. Look at the Maple Leafs, as one does. They are looking at all three of their backup goalie options right now, and they're seeing, all right, what can we do to tweak as the season goes on if you need to make a deadline move? So I think it's funny because with all the changes the Hurricanes have made that people are wrangling on about, the goaltending has remained the same. And it's like, that's still kind of an ace up the sleeve with Kochetkov if it works out. And I really liked his game against New Jersey.
Yeah, it's interesting. I keep going back to how the Canes have their internal numbers, how we view things, right? So there's the vibes. Giglio and I will joke about how Greg Wyshynski started his Rod Brindamore really all that good of a coach stuff at the end of last year. I know I heard the big sigh, totally get it. And again, they're not the darlings, but analytically, they seem to be a team that the numbers like, which I'm sure that Dundon and Eric Tulsky will very much cling to, in that what we see with the roster value, we like what we have. And there's only one way to prove that, through the grind of the regular season.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you optimize the roster so much, even with the Gensel situation last year. Okay. And you still didn't make the cup. So maybe I just think you have to wait and see. And I do think somebody like Jarvis is going to break out even more than he did and be awesome. And I think the way you got Tulski constructing the salaries and all of that in this salary cap era is something so fascinating. I do just, my mind wanders to the goaltending as always. And I wish if you're spending money on something, it's that. And now you're seeing with the new goaltending market with Swayman and Shesterkin and what have you, these goalies are demanding more money. So maybe you should have locked in somebody who was more of a superstar earlier. That's like the one fault I'm thinking of. I think sometimes wingers come and go, and you got Service, that makes me feel really confident. You got Aho, that makes me feel really confident, but I worry about the goaltending.
So part of the reason why I reached out, I saw that you had started the newsletter, subscribed to the newsletter, and your first thing is about how do you fix the openers for the NHL. The NHL is in this weird spot like the NBA, to a certain extent college basketball. It just kind of starts, right? Not everything is built like the NFL, where you have this week one and you have these huge games and a primetime matchup, and there's only so many of these weeks that you have, so everyone really, really matters. Yeah, the Canes, traditionally, they'll have a few home games, and then we don't see them for a month because of the state fair and everything else. So there's a macro, and then there's the local on this. And you reached out to your hockey friends as to find a way to juice some interest in the start of the season rather than it just starting the way that it does. Was there a consensus on a like, well, there's really nothing we can do, but if we could, here's what we do? What was like the best idea you heard?
I mean, F the preseason, right? People get hurt when they shouldn't need to get hurt. I understand a game or two or three or four, maybe max, which I think they might be arguing for in the next CBA with the Players Association and the league to minimize the preseason. I think it drags on for way too long, and I think that declines the hype, especially when there's a global series in Prague starting at 1 p.m. on a Saturday while the preseason is still happening. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like there's some hype up video. And I mean, as somebody who's gone from covering one team to covering the entire league, I understand your own home opener is more important than anything, and the hype videos there are real. But I think the league could be doing way more than one Gen Z video, which I thought was hilarious. I think there's that. I think there's Pierre LeBrun's plight of shortening the season in general, making the playoffs start earlier. Do that. Let people generate hype for the next season while there's not fatigue. Then there's also just maybe a puck frenzy, a puck-gasm, as Weiss said it in my newsletter, where it's every team playing at once, and make it like a long weekend, call out sick day, and make it start in September.
Yeah,
I think starting in September is the most crucial thing, and not having the global series during the preseason, because it's like, just make it the first week.
Well, why not learn a lesson from the pandemic? Move things back.
Nobody's learning a lesson from the pandemic.
Well, that's true. That you know what, that is a deeper statement that we need to get into right now. But in terms of like the shifting of the calendar, right? They decided to shift it back to the traditional calendar rather than, you know what, could have the summer to ourselves if we think about it. And you're not competing in September to generate buzz for the start of your season in the middle of the NFL sucking all the air out of the room.
When would you start it?
January.
Okay.
January.
I can't think
maybe
like
shorten
that.
the season a little bit. The postseason pretty much takes up all of July, so you're also not competing with the NBA in that regard either. And you're also in the slog of Major League Baseball. You know, they're coming out of the All-Star break. People are just kind of fatigued by some regular season storylines, and you're really picking things up right before people start getting back into football mode. I just feel like we're at a point now where everything's so global and everything is shifted. But I guess the other issue is, too, that people try to come off of summer stuff because everybody's going on vacations and everything else. I mean, I get there's certain calendar considerations, but I do agree that getting out of September might behoove, and October to a certain extent might behoove the NHL to have its own carved out calendar.
I don't love this idea. I'm going to be quite honest with you. But I think with the draft being decentralized, that could be like +1 there. And I also think I worry about free agency. I love the hype that generates, but I do think there is fatigue right after the season. It's like, okay, now we're going to Vegas for the draft, which I guess is not happening. But then the free agency immediately happens to like give me a dang break. I could see your way working a little better in that aspect, but I do think October is synonymous with hockey, maybe September.
Okay. Well, here's my other thing. They're never going to shorten the season because that's inventory, both television and home. Those home gates really, really matter. And it could be just what we're really missing. It has nothing to do with the calendar. And it just gets down to the eternal question I think every sports league is asking themselves. How the heck do you get Gen Z and Gen Alpha to spend money on our product and not just watch us on TikTok, not just watch us on an Instagram reel?
Right.
I mean, that's kind of the existential crisis everybody's dealing with. The NBA seems to have found some value in how clearly people were worried that the NBA wasn't going to get this massive television deal because most people consume it through social media. You're not watching the actual thing. And yet, I guess they found value in the inventory to keep having it and all the things that go around it, the podcast, the studio shows, and all that other kind of stuff. I feel like the NHL's probably been more progressive in trying to reach a different kind of audience, even though some older folks have been dragged kicking and screaming to go along with it, whether it's through inclusivity, being more TikTok focus going on Gen Z. I guess the question is, when you talk to people, does it seem like there's a payoff that's happening? Like I don't know, is there a player that is kind of breaking through to the younger audience right now that I'm not aware of?
You've got Zegras who's dating a TikTok influencer, and that brings my point. Like, it can't be forced. You can't be asking Bedard these wild questions. That's not him, but he does hilariously break through the fourth wall where he's like, I've practiced my questions all off season. And he has the media training where he's not saying anything like egregious or crazy, but he is pretty funny. And he was in that commercial saying like, oh, Gen Z doesn't work hard or whatever. I think these organic moments. And then you got Zegras obviously dating Dixie D'Amelio. Yeah. And that has helped the league.
Like I know who these people are.
I know, I barely do.
Baby
I'm
Gronk?
right on the cusp there.
Is it Baby Gronk? Did he rizz up Livy Dunn? Like, what am I? That's the last.
The league is rizzing up Livy Dunn. That's what we're doing. But I think the organicness of it all, and I think the new players coming in are on TikTok for fun. And I think that's Gen Z really likes sincerity. I'll say that. And they know when we're faking it. Like, hello, kids. I think the new batch of guys is pretty good. I think the docu-series is really, I was kind of hesitant. I had my doubts going into that, but I think it showed a realness to players. And I think the poking fun at ourselves as a league goes a long way. But I do think as always, there needs to be more accessibility with the game itself, with ice time, with diversity, and with getting out of just Canada. And you're starting to see that. I think someone like Anson Carter, I think something like the TNT panel too. It's really, we are growing the game, but I don't want to give us too much credit because there's a long way to go.
Yeah, definitely a long way to go. Sara Civian, the Substack is the Civ Report. You want this to be a troll-free zone. Do I have this right?
Yes, there's a group chat, which like I was thinking to myself, what do I want this to be? I want to be able to have inside jokes, memes, fun with people on hockey Twitter again, knowing that just hasn't been the case for whatever reason on Twitter for the past few years. It's part of it is the monetization of it all. Part of it is the Elon Musk of it all. Part of it is maybe it's just me growing my audience and thinking, oh, there's more reach and by proxy, you're seeing worse things. It's also the election season, right? I don't want people to shy away from talking about politics because that's intrinsic in sport, but I do want everybody to feel like no one's attacking each other. I want good faith conversation with people who don't suck. That's kind of what the sentence is that I'm using as the pitch. And I want to curate it. I ask questions in the chat, and the chat's kind of popping off slowly but surely. You don't have to be like involved, but I mean, there is a lot of engagement and fun, and people that are from all different, there's a lot of Canes fans, but people that are from all different sports fandoms that are discussing whatever game is going on. Like there's been a lot of WNBA talk. There's been whatever's popping up that day, but there's also the weekly newsletter that is every Monday kind of talking around people in the league with what's the hot topic or is there something I've wanted to write about to get off my chest, and then kind of just say power rankings, everybody loves that. And a playlist I've been doing, I don't know, kind of throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks, but I've been pleasantly surprised and shocked that there's been a big audience. And I really hope not for just staying out of my parents' basement, but for connection. I've missed the connection and have felt a little lost just trying to, I don't know, one thing I loved about Canes fans is that it feels like home and it feels like a community. So trying to bring that essence back has been fun.
Well, cool. I'm glad we can highlight that, and maybe the real Substack is the friends we made along the way. Civ.
I think it was. I think it is, and it was, and it will be.
Sara Civian, the Civ Report on Substack. Go check it out. We appreciate it. We will talk to you later, Civ.
Of course. Thanks so much.
Big thanks to our friends at Hometown Realty. Check them out online at myhtr.com. You can buy and sell with confidence, Joe. Buy, sell, calculate. Don't leave money on the table with one of these guaranteed offers. Also, thanks to our friends over at Whitaker and Hamer, wh.lawyer. I know you were supposed to go to the Cal State game, but you've now redirected yourself to go to a Kansas NC State basketball game, right?
Yes.
You're not driving, are you?
No.
Good. Because if you did, we'd have to inform the folks over at Whitaker and Hamer of what's going on.
On standby.
Please be on standby. Please be on standby, because when Joe's driving, you never really know what's going to happen. So head on over to wh.lawyer. Again, that's wh.lawyer.
All right, let's go to the Heister Automotive Group hotline for my friend Matthew Schmidt at O2 Fitness. Renew Physiotherapy. Everyone knows I'm on my journey to get my neck fixed, or at least in a better place, thanks to my friends at O2. And Matt, we're checking in with you today, I think specifically because you're a Detroit fan. And the biggest injury in the NFL last week was Aiden Hutchinson breaking both major bones in his leg and having surgery. So first of all, have you recovered from the news and seeing Hutch's injury as a Lions fan?
Look, well, first off, I appreciate you having me on today. It's good to be back. And I just think it's fitting. You know, I always say when people ask me, you're a Detroit fan, how's life? I'm like, you know what? I've grown accustomed to suffering. And it's like, when we finally get out of that season of suffering, you have the homegrown Michigander kid.
That's right. That's
goes
right.
to high school in Michigan, goes to the University of Michigan, like fan favorite. One of my favorite things about the run last season was after we won that playoff game, the camera just focused on Aiden, and he's just sitting there looking around at the stadium, just basking it all in. To see him go down, it was like, man, just felt sick to my stomach. I was listening to ESPN the next day, and Rex Ryan was on, you know, the camera, and he said the Lions won the game, but they might have lost the Super Bowl. And it's just like, man, just such a hard hit to the culture and just to the leadership of the team, you know? So to answer your question, no, I have not fully recovered.
Not recovered. Okay. I would say this to you. Now, I know the Patriots are a different beast, but the Patriots did win a Super Bowl without Rob Gronkowski. And he was just as important as Hutchinson was to what the Lions do. But a common misconception, at least I have in you know, my years of covering sports, is I would say to people, well, a break is better than a sprain or a tear. Mm-hmm. But in this case, we're talking about both the fibia and the tibia. So that might not apply here, will it?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this. So, you know, as soon as it happened, I'm sitting there, and, you know, my wife's athletic trainer. She's an excellent athletic trainer, actually. Used to work for the UNC football team and all the stuff. So we're sitting there chatting about it, and it's much better than, you know, the Nick Chubb injury or the Kevin Ware injury, those compound fractures where the bone actually breaks out of the skin, and that's when people can't even look at it, right? Because obviously Nick Chubb got hurt early midseason last year, and he's still not even back. And that's because, you know, when the bone breaks through the skin, a ton of soft tissue is also just super damaged, right? We're talking ligaments, we're talking muscle. That bone just carves right through all that tissue. And that's why it takes those athletes that much longer to recover. Now with Aiden's injury, he broke 2 of the major bones in his lower leg, right? The fibula and the tibia. So that's obviously worse than just breaking one of them. But in terms of what you're talking about of, hey, a bone injury is better per se than a soft tissue injury, I think you're right about that. Because with the sprains and strains of soft tissue, it becomes more of a playing game of like, man, we got to get this tissue properly warmed up. We got to make sure the muscle fibers are elastic enough. Whereas a bone, literally, you just got to wait for those osteoblasts to reestablish that bone tissue, those calcium deposits. And as soon as the structural integrity of that is reestablished, you're good to go.
I don't want to mix any kind of sports here, but I remember when Eric Cole broke his neck and showed up in the Stanley Cup Finals. Any chance, man?
Yeah.
Any chance that he shows up, even if it's just like a ceremonial in uniform on the sideline on the Super Bowl? I think it's February 7th this year, which would be the low end of the recovery time, 4 to 6 months.
So you heard it here first. I think if there's no setbacks in his rehab, right? I think Super Bowl is 17 weeks away from this past NFL Sunday. I think he'll be back in some capacity by the NFC Championship game if the Lions get there.
Maybe even 2 weeks earlier.
Right. It sounds crazy, right? But like as soon as those bones recover and structurally they're ready to take on compressive forces, tensile forces, he's going to get back out there. And it's just a matter of, hey, when can we just get that tissue ready to receive all of that force? And especially with these guys too, right? It's their full-time job. They're getting paid millions of dollars to do it. He's going to be spending all day, every day rehabbing this injury, right? So that's definitely going to bode in his favor as well. But you heard it here first. I know it might be a hot take.
And he's still young. This isn't, some of the major injuries we've seen, Aaron Rodgers, some of these older players, Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, where they kind of nagging. I would also argue, this is not a Christian McCaffrey, a guy who's been overused, right? The end position that he plays, certainly there's a lot of contact, but it's, short distance contact. It's not the, the violent type, ultra violent collisions that a McCaffrey would have to endure. To make him an old 28, I think is what he is at this point. So
yeah.
Now you're in Durham. How did you get to Durham as a Lions fan? You guys have 8 locations here in the Triangle. We keep talking about the Seaboard because it's right behind us, but you're out on University Ave in Durham over by Duke there. So how'd you end up over there as a Detroit guy?
Yes, sir. So, I grew up in Michigan, about 20 miles south of Detroit, little suburb. During the recession, we call that the great emigration from Detroit, because in the span
auto industry. Yeah.
Right. In the span of those 3 years, the population of Detroit went from 2 million to under 600,000 in 3 years. Wow. And so my family was part of that. My dad got offered 2 jobs, one in Seattle, one in Raleigh. Ended up taking the one in Raleigh. So moved down here, been down here since I was about 10 years old, but 0 to 10, those are formative years. So I grew up tailgating, going to Ford Field with my dad, with my brothers. We actually, ever since moving down to Raleigh, we've taken a trip every single year back to Michigan. We drive up there on a Friday, we go to a Lions game, and we're back in Raleigh by Monday morning, ready for work. So we love our Lions. But yeah, man. So go ahead.
You guys probably don't get too many broken fibias and tibias. I was curious, at Renew Physiotherapy, are backs the number one body part that you guys end up having to do a lot of physical therapy with, or am I off here?
It is a great question. I think backs are definitely number one.
Okay.
Backs are number one. I would say closely followed by shoulders, right? Just because, just with weekend warriors and very active people. Because one of the things I love about our model, right, is we're not the typical, you get surgery and then you're told by a surgeon, hey, go see this physical therapist for this many times. It's really people who are like, man, my body hurts and I need somebody to fix it, and I'm not trying to get operated on. I'm not trying to go through all these different steps, right? Give me somebody who knows my body and can fix me without having to cut me open. And so it usually is the weekend warriors, people who are used to pushing their bodies to the limit, and then they just get these aches and pains where it's like, man, how do I maximize my function? Which
Maybe
can be
even those Wednesday, Friday morning warriors who play golf. Shoulder, back, you're trying to get back out there and not be in pain.
Right.
That's how that's led me to you guys too, at O2fitnessclubs.com.
Right.
All right, before I let you go here, I went to Knoxville this weekend to see Tennessee and Florida. I went to an SEC football game, enjoyed myself. I didn't overdo it, but I did it. I drank just enough that it's Thursday and I'm still sitting here going, now why at almost 50 am I still struggling a little bit? So a little bit out of your beaten path here, but I am curious, in your experience, do any of these liquid IV drinks or Gator Lights or any of the other stuff we see that's for hydration, do any of those drinks actually work, or is it more of a little bit of a mind trick?
So I would say it's a little bit of both, right? I think it's a good tool, but if you're relying completely on liquid IV, then you're going to run out of nutrition fast, right? Because the whole thing about drinking too much, and I forget, did Tennessee win that game?
They did in overtime, yes.
Oh, so you were having a lot of fun.
I think more so Friday than Saturday because it was so late on Saturday.
Right,
but,
right.
2 days in a row, back to back, long drive, all these other things. I've been slow all week.
Yeah, no doubt. So the thing about drinking and having fun like that is it dehydrates your body, and so historically people are just like, man, let me just chug a ton of water, pop some ibuprofen, but what that actually then does to your body is it produces something called hyponatremia, which is essentially a lack of vitamins, a lack of electrolytes. And it actually makes your body feel worse, because that's when you feel the achiness, the crampiness, right? Just you're not clear. And that's what liquid IV and Gator Lights, that's what those things are designed to fix, is the hyponatremia. The thing about that though is you can have the reverse effect if all you do is drink those things, right? So the ideal is to have a mix, right? You drink a bottle of water with a liquid IV, then you toss in another bottle of straight water to try to get your body back into its proper hydration and getting those minerals and vitamins back in there. And that should take away some of those aches and pains and help you think a little bit more clearly.
I'll try to make more better choices on the front end too.
Yeah.
I think maybe at 50 that should be the lesson.
No doubt.
We'll make a good choice for your physical therapy and your physical health. Go check out Matt Schmidt. He's in Durham, but O2 Fitness, they have 8 locations across the triangle. Ours, yes, the home base there, Seaboard in downtown Raleigh, but O2fitnessclubs.com. All right, Matt, best of luck to your Lions. I hope this is not the end. I hope Rex Ryan's wrong, and I hope you're right. I hope we see Aiden Hutchinson before that Super Bowl.
Me too. I appreciate it, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
All right, let's get out of here on some Hey Joe. We've had some folks send us musical. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, we get a Hey Joe question, and then oftentimes what'll end up happening is I'll open up our Instagram DMs. There's a request. Sorry, they don't fish out the requests sometimes. It's just not a top of mind type of thing. So I go in there and I see people have sent us reels of, did you see this Yacht Rock version?
Right.
Did you see this Kids Bop version? Did you see this Bluegrass version? And I appreciate them. I mean, I truly do, because I think they're all funny. And we haven't done these in a bit. And I thought we could close out today's OG Live by the Butcher's Market with some of these. The first one is from Instagram on, I guess this is Best Young Family Music. All right. Let's see what this quote unquote family music is.
1, 2, 3.
pause it right here. I can see why they're going with Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer, because it is a funky tune.
Yeah.
I'm pausing it because I hope I'm by pausing it, we don't get flagged by YouTube for playing the music.
You don't have to go all the way there. I sent this to you
But
because
hold on a second. Look, okay. Look at that kid's face playing, man. That kid is
jamming.
That kid is slapping the bass. He is what? 12, 13, and he's already got that white man overbite groove slapping that bass. I am impressed, dude. He is feeling it. Do you think they understand the lyrics to Sledgehammer though? No.
That's where I was going. Like, show me around your fruitcakes. I mean, it's as sweet as the honey can be.
All right. Well,
all right.
From one dirty song that you might not realize is as dirty as it is to a very dirty song. Now, this is a guy who I see on TikTok from time to time. This guy named Nick Harrison. He turns everything into yacht rock. And I had a lot of you send this to me. What if 9 Inch Nails was yacht rock? All right.
Help me, I broke apart my insides. Help me, I've got no soul to sell. Help me, the only thing that works for me. Help me get away from myself. I wanna love you like an animal.
Whoa. Not the words.
Whoa. Come on now. I need the full song. Give me the full lyrics. I want to love you like an animal. That does not hit the same way.
No.
Anyway, I think it's the greatest thing ever that became a radio hit and it still gets played today. Speaking of 9 Inch Nails, this is a few years old, but this was sent to me as well. This is a guy doing karaoke, Ghostbusters, but doing Closer. Apparently this goes. So this sent me down a rabbit hole. Because the guy's not looking at the camera. And I am curious as if to whether or not that actually was Trent Reznor who decided to show up to a karaoke bar and wow you with his, by the way, I stole this beat from Ghostbusters and you never knew it. That would be amazing. So I watched a couple times and I found I think this was from a few years ago. And nobody can confirm that it's Trent Reznor, but based on I don't think it is him, but it wouldn't put it past me.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. That is all I'm saying. I also got this sent to me. This is, I don't know exactly where this is. It was off of Reddit and it was 9 Inch Nails and it's clearly it's a nail salon. The caption of this was, well, you've got me working so hard lately. Working my fingers to the bone. Yeah, I gotta take myself to 9 Inch Nails. And get this talk. Oh man. From Kelly, bring me all the A-Rod talk, the AA-Ron, all the Panthers talk, but please, for the love of God, no more yacht rock. From David. Basically, if Steely Dan covered 9 Inch Nails, yeah, that would definitely be it. That would definitely be it. So yeah, by all means, send me all the Yacht Rock you can. One of these days, I'm going to do a short show, Joe. We went an hour and 45 minutes. We went an hour and 45 minutes today.
It's overrated.
With no real commercial breaks. No time to get up and go get yourself a water or something like that. Psh, man, y'all ain't built like us. You ain't built like us. I got my multi-hour sea legs back. All right. I'm done here. I'm going to go in the car. I'm going to go listen to more Yacht Rock versions of 9 Inch Nails. We will see you all for an OG mailbag, part of OG Triangle Media, and we'll see you all next week.